Welcome to this episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. I'm Aric.
And I'm Angie.
We are married with a ton of kids.
We have 6 kids total. He has 3 and I have 3.
My name's Hallie and I love riding horses.
I'm Lexi and I love agriculture.
My name's Carter and I love eating.
My name's Chase and I love lifting weights.
My name's Summer and I love spending my parents' money.
I'm Dane and I love baseball.
Our show is about our blended, blessed, and always a mess life. And our hope is if you find yourself in the same situation we are in, that by sharing our story, all the fun and all the mess, the challenges we are experiencing, it will give you some inspirations, laughs, and community, knowing you are not alone in this mess.
We appreciate you spending time with us. Let's dive in.
This episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess is brought to you by Hallie's House of Healing in Santa Rosa Beach on the legendary 30A highway. If you and your family are looking for a place to relax, rejuvenate, and recharge, then think about the legendary 30A between Destin and Panama City, where in Santa Rosa Beach, you'll find clear ocean, white powdery sand, all kinds of cute local shops and restaurants. And Hallie's House of Healing is less than 1 mile from the beach. With golf cart option available, stay in this 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath that comfortably sleeps 10 by booking now at Airbnb.com, on our website, blendedblessedalwaysamess.com, or reach out to us on our Facebook or Instagram page and book directly there. Welcome to this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. And it's not a regular date night. I know that it might look like it. If you're watching on YouTube, everything seems in alignment. It's getting ready to be nighttime. We're at home, but it's been a busy week. And Angie actually just got back today. And so we're actually recording this on Friday to drop on Sunday. And as we said last week, this will be a little more lighthearted because last week was obviously heavy. One of the heavier episodes we've had in a while. And for all of you who made it through, we appreciate it because it was probably the longest podcast we'd ever done too. But had to be addressed, and we got some great feedback this week that just grateful for.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate all the reach out and the love and support before the sentencing, during the sentencing, after the sentencing. You guys don't realize like how much that means to us, to just feel like you've got people rooting for you and praying for you. And it makes the heaviness feel just a hair lighter. So definitely appreciate that. But we have had some beautiful things. I use the term painful beauty, but you go through so much pain all the time. A lot of people are going through painful times in their life. And there's some very beautiful things. I was talking to a close friend the other day that her friend had just recently lost her daughter. And we were talking about like how you keep their memory alive through things that they said or did or liked or enjoyed. And one of the things that she shared was her daughter that suddenly passed away at 16. She would always say, well, I look for glimmers, little glimmers. And so that's their thing, is to always find a glimmer. And so we're going to honor her. And we're going to share glimmers that we've had throughout the week. So
I love that. And it does. It starts back last weekend when we went down to Hallie's house in Florida, which is taking bookings right now. If you're looking for some place to go over the fall or winter months, every time we go to Hallie's house, a couple of things happen. We do get a lot of signs from her. Very obvious that she is present when we're there. And I would say for both of us, it's a very peaceful, healing place. I notice when we arrive, you become, I don't mean this to come across in a certain way, so I hope I say this right. Any guys listening right now are like, oh God, what's he going to say?
Here he goes.
I can tell when we arrive there that you become much closer to the Angie that I met and married, as we say, before with Hallie, and then we have after Hallie. And we've discussed over and over, there's 2 different versions, but whenever you get down there, it's like your heart instantly lightens. It's like life is breathed into your body and you become full of life, I guess would be the way to say it. It feels like
Yeah, I think yes and no. I think there is a level of peace, I think, with the ocean, with such a calming and peaceful area. Of course, temperatures are always great. There's that aspect of escape. And I think anytime you go through hardships in your life, there's this flight or fight mode, and flight is like an escape, like get me out of here. So I wouldn't say that things feel lighter and it goes away, like your pain goes away. It does not go away. You cannot escape the challenges that you're in. But I think you can just maybe breathe a little bit, that you're kind of feels like you're away from whatever your troubles are. And for us, we didn't plan that timing that right after the sentencing that we would take this little birthday trip. We just all happened that way, but it could not have been better timing to just get me out of here.
Yeah. Well, and then as soon as you got there, Hallie's like, "Hey, Mom, look at me." So we get there and go to dinner, but then we walk on the beach as the sun's going down. And what happened?
Yeah, it was beautiful sunset. Decided, we're going to grab something to eat. We're going to go walk on the beach. And we start walking on the beach. And Amber, actually, one of my best friends, was walking right next to me. And I looked up and noticed the birds flying in formation. And I was thinking to myself, that's a weird formation because normally it's like a V.
Yeah.
But this was not a V. And Amber was like, "Oh my gosh, look at the birds. It's a 7." And it literally was a 7. And I think the beautiful thing about receiving signs from Hallie is that at different times, there's different people with us. And because I think sometimes, I've shared this before, the kids are like, "Oh God, here they go again," like some sign, or even, I think people that maybe don't experience that maybe think you're imagining it in some aspects, but there literally is no imagining this.
No,
because
it's so clear.
I love that other people are around us when it happens because they get the same, like, "Oh my God." There's no other explanation for it. 7's a thing. The birds are always a thing. I wrote feathers matter, like mama bird, baby birds are a thing. Anyway, so it was wild. And we took a picture of that and showed that on social media. I shared that out.
Super cool.
So then the next day we decide we're going to grab an early breakfast and we're going to go to the beach because our weather wasn't great that weekend. So we were going to try to soak up any amount that we can. And so me and the 3 girls that were along with us on this trip took the golf cart to the beach. And we park, we hop off. Me and another one of my friends that were along hopped off the left side of the golf cart and we're coming around. And I look down and right there is a piece of paper, just a small piece of paper laying behind the golf cart with 777 on it.
Crazy.
I'm like, "Look at this piece of paper." And they were like, "Oh my gosh, that's insane." Like where we parked, what time, it was kind of windy.
Plenty of parking there. Yeah.
It was a little piece of paper. It could have blown off. It could have been any other number, but it was 777. So it's crazy. So that was another one that was amazing that I had posted. But then on our last full day there, we decided to go for a long beach walk. And I think everybody, has their own thing that they're trying to navigate in life. And there's just something about a long, quiet beach walk. And so we were all just kind of spread out, sort of just doing our walk. A couple of my friends were behind me and one was kind of off to the left. And we probably walked 1.5 miles one way. And
that's tough on the beach too.
It is. Yeah. It feels like 10 miles. And I noticed when I was walking that there's this one beachy bird that was walking along with me and walked with me for a little while before I was like, "Oh, this thing's really not going to fly off." And then I started to record it. because I'm like, no one's going to believe me. That
Sure.
this bird is walking this long with me. So after I finally started recording, I have a 2-minute video of this bird just like keeping up with me along this whole beach walk. It's just so crazy. And then later when we stopped, the two of my friends behind me were like, did you notice that bird with you the whole time? Because they took a picture of it too. And I'm like, yeah, it's just crazy. It's crazy. So those are glimmers of like, hi, Hal, I know you're with me. And she always shows up when things are the absolute heaviest for me. It's like, okay, Mom, I'm gonna come in hot for a second, just to remind you, I'm always with you. I'm around you. I'm here. It's okay.
Yes. And on that note, while I'm skipping ahead in your notes, you did have a hard, I know you did have a hard week this week. So I'm hoping that she's going to show up because basically, we get back Sunday night and from Monday until now, about 5 days that you've been carrying that heavy weight. Like it's been very noticeable, I would say.
Yeah, because here's what I will say, and I'll say this over and over to people. You cannot escape the hard emotions. So I think what happened with me is, we immediately go into an escape. And yes, it feels lighter and you're enjoying the beachy weather. You're away from your troubles, all of that. It's fun, but you have to feel it. So we come back and then it's like, now we're back in reality. And guess what? Those hard emotions are going to be there waiting for you. Like, hey, you're going to have to feel this. You're going to have to go through this. And yeah, it was a hard week, even with all the glimmers, because we haven't even gotten to half the glimmers, but you still are going to have to navigate the hard at some point. So, I felt like it was really hard this week to pull myself out of the sadness.
I would say that's fair because you had your great Grit with Grace event that we're going to talk about that you love, that we've talked about every year on the podcast. And even that wasn't pulling you out of the sadness the way that it has last year. And so, I worry about you. I will say this because even this week I had somebody message me that they had just listened to the communication episode we did last month. And they were a few episodes behind. And her and her husband have, a blended family. And they live, I don't know where they live, Kansas City maybe. And she's like, I can totally relate with you. And my husband's Angie. And, that communication is such a thing. But I will say, going back to that episode, you did acknowledge Monday right away. Hey, I can feel I'm being distant. And here's what I'm feeling. So you gave me a heads up on that, which I did appreciate very much, the fact that you called it out. And then while you traveled for 2 nights, something we'd gotten away from was FaceTiming each other before bed. There would be a call or a text, but no FaceTime. And we did that the last 2 nights. And I had mentioned to you before we got off the phone last night, hey, I personally really appreciated that from you. So just for people that are asking, yes, we are working on communication and we put it into play this week with some of the hard things that have been going on.
I shared that with you because in my life, I go, 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 right?
She does, yes.
There's no stillness or quiet a lot of times. And so whenever I feel things are the heaviest, then I want to just go inward and just process it. So I did proactively share that with you because I knew I felt like I needed to go inward for a minute. And I know that's hard for you when I'm in that mode. So,
but like we talked about then today, because obviously I brought it up again today, what am I supposed to do? And you're like, what do you think I even need from you? And I said to you the same thing that you read. So last week you read in Chase's statement that he feels like he has to cheer his parents up. Mm-hmm. And that's what I said to you today. It's like, in some regard, Chase and I are similar in that we're both protectors. And when we get like 5 days in and I know you've had like a great event that normally picks you up and I can tell you're still really sad. Yeah, I'm in protection mode. Like, how am I going to help her? How am I going to pull her to safety? And yet I still can't do that for you, was the quick conversation that we had about it today. So just kind of rolling some of those things into one. And speaking of Chase, and lighter topics, Chase surprised, shocked. Maybe this was a sign from Hallie too, because as Chase said last night at dinner, we actually had Hallie scholarship dinner last night. I'll tell you about that. But he even said dinner was like, I just don't like school. It's not for me, which Hallie did not like school.
No.
Was not her thing. And so we were both surprised last weekend in Florida when you got a message.
He sent me a snap of this award that he was student of the month. And I'm not going to lie, like I zoomed in on it. Like, is this something he created or because
I thought it was a joke.
Chase has charisma and charm and he's funny and he's headstrong and he's independent, like all the things. Yes.
He's a teacher's dream.
Right. Right. But yeah, to your point, the one thing school has a lot of rules and discipline and all of that. And that's maybe not his favorite thing. So when he sent that he got student of the month, I'm like, oh, damn. I am proud of him. He did joke like he got called to the office and he like thought maybe he was in trouble. Didn't think he was getting an award.
That's what last night I asked him. He goes, I thought I was getting suspended. He's like, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, what am I getting suspended for? Like, that's how much of a shock it wasn't just to us. I asked Summer, I said, were you surprised when they said on the intercom that Chase won student of the month? And she was like, I wasn't just surprised. Every kid in class was surprised.
Well, the other day I got a note from a teacher because I don't know. I think this is probably more of a boy thing than a girl thing, or that could just be my experience. But, he's maybe not the most efficient with his time. And so a teacher had reached out that he was not using his class time wisely, loves having him in class, funny, blah, blah, blah. But like, if we could kind of hit that at home. So I played a little game with him. After that, I called him. I'm like, hey, which one of your teachers do you think would reach out to me about some concerns in class? And he was like, well, Mr. So-and-so, he was aggravated at us the other day, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, wasn't that teacher? Like, what next? Then he rattled off another one. I'm like, whoa, Chase, not that teacher either. Not that teacher either. And so then I'm like, cut him some slack a little bit. Like, dude, this is the teacher. Like, I'll send you the email. Let's make sure we get that under control. Anyway, it was.
You can see why he was concerned.
It was well played on my part, but yes, exactly. And then he gets student of the month. So anyway,
clearly, there's clearly one teacher really likes him. We don't know one of them. We don't know.
It has to be more than one because I think they vote on it. But yeah, he's definitely got a fun personality.
So we headed home. Well, I guess I should say some of you have probably pieced together. You've heard Aric and you and Angie were on this trip to Florida, but then 3 of Angie's friends, and you're like, how does this even work? Well, I basically played butler for the weekend.
Well, why it happened is we talked about doing like a friends trip for our birthday. A couple of us have birthdays close together, but then you and I also talked about like getting away. And we had one weekend in a series of a couple months that it worked for us to get away. And so it was like, I'll just combine the trip. Mm-hmm. We just combined the trip. So I had 3 of my friends along and then Aric was the only guy. And he was the Alejandro.
I set up beach chairs. I cleaned the house. I did dishes and laundry, made sure the girls got where they need. I did a lot of things on my own so they could shop and do things like that. But it was fun. And we joked, like, if you're going to be a butler, who would you be? And when I took years of Spanish because I love the language. And, when they have you pick a Spanish name in school, Aric's not really a Spanish name. So I had picked Alejandro because I thought it was really cool, rolled off the tongue. So I played butler all weekend.
Yeah, it was awesome. It spoiled us all. So I don't know if our listeners remember that when we went on a Florida trip last year, our first vacation after we lost Hallie, it was like the vacation from hell. And it started off where Aric was driving to Florida. I had girls in my car. Aric had the boys. And when we had to make that little pit stop at the St. Louis Children's Hospital for Chase to get his appendix out, there's like this weird theme that involves Florida, Aric driving, and needing to have your appendix taken out. Because as we landed in St. Louis Sunday night after the trip, and we're driving home. Amber's in the car with us, and she's not feeling the best. Her stomach hurts on her side. We end up calling Chase. Like, Chase, what was your appendix like pain? What did that feel like? And anyway, on Monday afternoon, she had her appendix taken out. So
yeah,
don't.
So if you want to ride with me to Florida, yeah, you could be next.
Yes. So another glimmer. Another glimmer is I have finalized Are You With Me, my second children's book in my little series I have going. And I have ordered the crochet horse, Phoenix horse, to go along with it. I have ordered the little stickers to go along with it. I've got it all going on. So
that's awesome.
That's super exciting to see that all come together. I'm going to have to pay the bill now. So there's my little.
So again, if you want to rent Hallie's house, pre-order a book, all the things, that would be fantastic. Yeah. So people say to me, they're like, you guys have a lot of listeners. How do you make money? We don't. So that's
just for fun.
Yeah. This is a grief session is what it is. But with that being said, you did some fun things with Feathers Matter this week.
Yeah. So I was heading to Kansas City this week for my women's event, and I made a little pit stop in Oak Grove and read to a whole bunch of little second graders. I did this last year too, and I absolutely love doing it. Kids are like so innocent, so sweet. They ask the best questions. One little class, my friend Allison, that's a teacher, she's such a great friend, so sweet and always reaching out to me. She's just the best teacher too. And anyway, her class made me thank you cards, and it's just the cutest cards. And they were all so excited to give them to me. But I did give her class only a little sneak peek, and I read the second book, Are You With Me, just to see if they loved the book or what questions they had about the book. And because I have it in PDF form. So we pulled it up on her like projector and walked through it, and they love the horse character. Love it. Cool. Like there was a lot of like buzz around the horse. So that was fun to do because I've only shared it with a couple people.
So you did that, and then you also got to be a part of another podcast, which is always really good.
Yeah, I had a while back got invited to be a guest on this monthly podcast. It's with the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. And they wanted me to be a guest during October because October is their awareness month. And we recorded that this week. I always enjoy being a guest on a podcast. And it was a great conversation. So I'm excited to share this one with you. A lot about just kind of our journey and what we're focused on. A lot about women empowerment, right? And the self-worth and all those aspects that we all deal with on a regular basis. So that was a great conversation. I'm looking forward to that one dropping. And then speaking of women empowerment.
Yes.
We have this yearly event that I lead along with our marketing team with the company I work with, Worldwide Technology. And we held it in Kansas City at the women's soccer stadium, which is like the first professional women's sport that has their own stadium in the world, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. A lot of people that probably don't know, like if you have a women's like WNBA, they play in the men's NBA stadium. Same with the other women's soccer teams around the country. So it is really cool.
We were talking, so we had a tour of the stadium. And obviously, so let me back up for a second. Our guest speaker, we always try to get phenomenal speakers. We had Molly Fletcher, which Molly is known as the female version of Jerry Maguire. So she was a sports agent for 20 years. Imagine that male dominated field. Like there was no female sports agent. And she shares stories around like people thinking like she was someone's mom standing there, or someone that they were like trying to hit on, or a girlfriend or whatever. Or someone brought their wife, and not recognizing that she might actually be their agent. And she was a badass agent because she could lead with empathy and take care of their families, because women are naturally nurturers. And she more embraced what made her different as an opportunity to show up and be different. So it's just amazing. But giving her background as a sports agent, that's why we picked that location, because it's a women's only stadium. And part of the conversations that we were having is like a lot of like the example that you used with women's basketball, they were sharing, I didn't know this, that a lot of times they don't even get to use the home team's locker room when they play at those men's stadiums, that they have to use like the guest or the visiting locker room. And I don't know if that's not in every situation, obviously, but they were sharing like all the discrepancies between the two. And this facility is beautiful. And it's definitely, a lot of people don't know that. Like Molly didn't even know that was a women's only soccer stadium, and no other sport in the world has a women's only stadium. So it was pretty cool to have it there. I would definitely recommend Molly's podcast called Game Changers. We might have mentioned it on here before, but like if you're in a season where you have a drive to achieve, but you're also trying to balance, which is not a thing. Try to balance life and, your family and career and all of that stuff. She talks a ton about like how people achieve something, but then where do they go from there? How do you continue to achieve? How do you can continue having drive, and what keeps you successful without completely draining you? Yeah. And how do you, she shared this analogy, which I think I've never heard it, but it's a great analogy, because she talks a lot about like the only way to continue that drive and that energy is to make sure that you're focusing your priorities on the things that matter to you most. And if that's out of whack, then you are going to be completely exhausted, stressed, burnout. Burnout is from focusing on the things that are maybe misaligned with where you actually want to focus your time. So she told the story of like, okay, let's just say there's a plank between two super tall buildings, and the plank has a dip in it, and it's way high off the ground. There's no net below. Would you walk across that plank for $1 million if you have an 80% chance of making it and a 20% chance of not making it, and you're done?
Oh my gosh.
For $1 million, would you do that?
Well, I know that you would do it, because you're like, if I die, I die. Yeah, you'd be like, if I die, I die. I'm good. I'm in.
Oh,
Where I'm thinking to myself, maybe.
I said no. I wouldn't. No, I would not do that.
It's $1 million. I got an 80% chance.
Okay, well, would you for $5 million?
Oh, I mean, it's even better now. I mean, $5 million. You got to try it.
So everybody in the room pretty much said no, except for one young girl in the room. She was like, I will. And she's like, yeah, you're young. You don't have a like. So then she changed it and said, now, would you cross that plank if your family was on the other side and you had to save them? Well, yes. That's a no-brainer. I would cross that plank in a heartbeat. And so the moral of the story is, if you're focused on the things that matter, you're willing to take the risk, you're willing to walk across something that might be super challenging, it might scare you, all of those things. but you're going to be hesitant to do it if it's not something that you truly care about and you're passionate about. And so I thought that was a great analogy to kind of just get everybody thinking about their focus.
Yeah, that's a really good story. I like that a lot. And it's just one of those things where ever since you came up with the idea for this event, this was the third one. It's been something that's just always filled your cup. And I'm always really proud of you that week. And we try to celebrate you a little bit that week too, because it is something that you've been passionate about since before we met. I mean, it was one of the first things that drew me to you when we started dating was how passionate you were about building women up and bringing women together. And that's what the event's about. So super cool. Last night, because you were at your event,
So that was also something that was a little bit heavy this week is I've had this event planned from like February of this year. We set a date, we lock it in, right? There's a lot of planning that goes into the location, the speaker, all of those things. And then like a month ago, I get the invite to Hallie's scholarship dinner where you meet the two recipients. And it's the same damn night. Like I was so bummed because it's just something that also fills my cup. It honors Hallie, all of that. But there was just no way I could miss this event for her. So it was like, okay, as a different way to look at it, I could spend time with the two recipients and maybe go take them and grab coffee and have more of a one-on-one kind of conversation with them and just to meet them. So I'm doing that. But Aric went, Chase went this time along with Lance and Michelle. And so you can kind of share.
I said, I got there early and Angie wanted me to take a Feathers Matter book. And so I got there early and the girls were already at the table and visited with them about the book and how it is about Hallie's life. And so they loved that and then got to know them. One of the girls was actually a roommate with the girl who won last year on the first go round for the scholarship. So that was neat. Both small town girls love horses. And then Hallie's advisor showed up to sit at our table with her husband. And I don't know, you'll remember some of you way back when this grief journey started, Angie had told a story about how she wanted to meet this advisor, and at a wrestling event, all the stars aligned that Chase and this woman's son ended up wrestling each other. And Angie just happened to be sitting behind Hallie's advisor and the husband. And that's how they end up figuring out that this was Hallie's advisor who Angie had been trying to find. So just a cool thing. So she sat at the table last night. I visited with her for a long time, which of course then Angie was disappointed that she couldn't visit with her. So it was a lot of different stuff last night, but great to see these young women who loved horses being honored with Hallie's scholarship at Mizzou last night. Mizzou, grateful as always, and for all that they have done during this entire time. So before we wrap today, those are the high points, the good stuff. A little happier this week than last week. I read this yesterday, and I haven't got to share this with you, but for our listeners in the Northeast, you know about, here we are in mid-October. Halloween's right around the corner. And you just see in all those empty stores, the spirit Halloweens that pop up.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're all over. Well, they announced yesterday that they're going to test run this year, 10 stores in the Northeast. As soon as Halloween ends, flip to Spirit Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Santa Claus will be there, all this stuff. So for our listeners in the Northeast, be on the lookout. I bring that up because I'm a big Christmas guy.
That's a great idea, actually.
I mean, honestly, if you're going to have the rent on the Spirit Halloween for 30 to 45 days, why not extend it through Christmas?
Right.
And really see what you can do. So that had nothing to do with our episode other than that we're really lighthearted today. And I had been wanting to share that with you. And I know there are some listeners that are Christmas crazy, some that are Halloween crazy, some that are Christmas crazy, that are probably hoping that Spirit Christmas shows up all across the U.S. next year.
That's funny. Well, we also need to say what we're grateful for.
Yeah. What do you have today?
So
I will say you having 3 always makes it hard for me.
Well,
I come up with one just fine.
I'm just more grateful, I guess.
Well, you're better than me. I get it.
Even in the sadness, I can find glimmers. So my first one is I'm grateful for the glimmers this week. So although like you wanted to try to pull me out of it, I'm so grateful that I had the glimmers because there's quite a few this week. That's number one. Number 2 is just grateful for this upcoming weekend because we have kids this weekend and not anything too crazy going on, but just grateful to have them pop in and out. Always makes me smile. And then the last one is kind of a twofold thing. So one, I'm grateful that Hurricane Milton did lessen somewhat and didn't have as much damage as they thought it might. But also just want to pray for everybody in Florida and the other states that were impacted by the hurricanes. It's just super devastating. We actually have people staying at Hallie's house that escaped the hurricane from Tampa. So just want to send some prayers that direction.
Yeah. I just started saying I'm grateful that it's Friday, the weekend. Just second what you said, we've got kids. Weather looks to be great. Tomorrow will actually be sunny and upper 80s. Saturday sunny and low to mid 70s. So fall's hitting here in Missouri this week. And so I'm excited about that. And I am absolutely grateful that Lexi is taking her first real big girl trip by herself. She flew out this week to Idaho to see her good friend, her college mate. And I'm proud of her because that's not something she normally would do, is just to go out on her own. So grateful for her to have that experience and that opportunity. And then finally, I'm just grateful that I don't want to say too much about this because it won't happen, but I'm grateful I got to meet a baseball player that used to pitch for the Cardinals and the Royals earlier this week at a seminar I was at. And I got to spend 30, 40 minutes talking to this guy. And, I wouldn't say he was my hero, but they always say, never meet your heroes. This is not one of those guys. This is one of those guys who down to earth, had time to kill this week. So he went to strange kids ball practice who was 12 years old and helped the team for 2 hours and signed autographs with kids. Just a great guy. And through our talks, he has a new podcast with a buddy. And I think they're going to be a part of our podcast in the next couple of months to talk about some things that I think will be very interesting for me, not sports related. So grateful, if nothing else, that I got the chance to spend time with that former major leaguer because it's just a super great guy. So with that being said, we hope that everyone has an absolutely wonderful week. As you can see, the sun has set and I'm now sitting in the dark. So it's time to go.
It's time to wrap it up.
It's time to wrap. Have a wonderful week and God bless. Thank you for listening to Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at blendedblessedalwaysamess.com.
Reach out to us on any of our social channels. We would love to hear from you. Have a great week.